Good morning, folks. You're very welcome, and great to see so many of you out this morning, or afternoon, or evening, because I noticed from the sign-ins that we have people from pretty much everywhere. So you're very, very welcome. And we're going to get started with no particular ado. I just want to mention, in case you're not familiar with this platform, Zoom, you'll see that there are two options or three options down there on your console. One of them is a chat option, and perhaps you do me a favor and just chat in, maybe chat in the country that you're coming from, signed in from this morning, and make sure when you send a chat that you're sending it to all panelists and attendees. And just so that I make sure, and great, thank you, folks. Now I know that you can hear me. I know that you're there. And we got people from oh my God, we got them from all over. And the Australians are up are here with us late in the evening. And we got people from Hong Kong. We got the United Kingdom, Athens, South Africa. Good Lord, absolutely everywhere. So, folks, you're very, very welcome to the session. We just started the recording, so I'm going to dive straight into that. Two other options that are there. One is a hands-up option. I probably won't use that today, and a Q&A. What I'm going to do, because normally I have somebody assisting in the background and fielding the questions during the chat. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to keep the questions until the very end. So if a question comes up while we're doing the session, please pop it into the chat, and then at the very end, I'm going to hop in there and I'm going to deal with them. That's probably the best way to keep us absolutely on time. He said moving his clock into a place where he could see it. So we are 1 minute past the hour. The recording has started. Let me share my screen and let's get this show on the road. So, do you know where you're going to? And I suspect that the thing that probably attracted you to this is the idea that another one of those New Year's is coming, and it's an opportunity for a little bit of reflection and thinking about what do I do next? Where do I want to go in this coming year? And so that's exactly where my head is at right now, and I'm delighted that yours is there with me. Let's see what we can do together on that. So first thing I just want to say to you, can you make sure before we get into things that you have a pen and paper to hand? It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a scrap of paper and a pen, because one of the exercises we do later requires that. So with no further ado, this is me. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time boasting on who I am. I guess in the context of what we're dealing with today, the most important thing about what I am is who I work for. It's a company called Genos International. We're a leading supplier of emotional intelligence assessment and training and development offerings. And I am going to brag a little bit on this now. We won a lot of awards. Last couple of years, we've been one of the top 20 assessment companies in the world, according to trainingindustry.com. And that's not just EI assessment companies. That's top 20 assessment companies in the world, something we're very, very proud of. We go to market in general through certified partners who tend to be in-house or external independent coaches, consultants, and trainers. And when they complete their certification, they get the usual continuing coaching education credits. We're also a business partner of the ICF, which means that their chief technology officer has reviewed our technology and has found, or not our technology, I should say, but our research, and has found that it is really, really credible. And finally, and this is the one I'm really very, very proud of, the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence was set up by Dan Goleman, the Dad-D of emotional intelligence. Really if you like, to police the area of emotional intelligence and make sure that they had some mechanism for saying who were credible suppliers and who weren't. And since they were founded a number of years ago, they basically blessed just 7 suppliers. One of the first ones that they blessed was Genos, so we're approved by the Consortium for Research in Emotional Intelligence. So that's the boasting bit done. That's what we do. We are all over the world. Several of you, I notice, I recognize some of the names already, work with us, and you know that we work in multiple languages. And that map, in fact, is a little bit out of date. We've actually expanded even since then. Here's what we exist for. Now, obviously, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to try and convince you that we are a not-for-profit organization. We exist in part to ensure that our shareholders get a return on their investment. But we do, courtesy of the area that we work in, we do have the advantage of being able to make a bigger impression on the world. And we set a purpose, it's kind of long-winded, a couple of years ago, that spoke about the impact we wanted to have on the world. And it's very simple. We wanted to create workplaces where people show up and they want to be there, and they show up in a way that is genuine, considerate, and empathetic of others. And we're genuinely invested in that as a goal. Lots of people have visions and missions and purposes. I guess some of them even like this. We actually live it. And so the program that you're in right now is part of our social responsibility program. And we run every couple of months a variety of programs. So for example, this year, we've run an 8-week program called The Mindful Leader, Mindfulness and Emotional Intelligence for leaders, the Mindful and Emotionally Intelligent Salesperson, which was a 4-week session, and the Emotional Intelligence and Neuroscience Masterclass for coaches, consultants, trainers, and HR people, which was a one-session program. I have a star after each of those to remind me to say to you that if you miss those and you think, oh, God, I wish I had made that, you can sign up for them to do them as self-paced programs, because we captured the recording, created a self-paced program around them. So at the end of this session, if you say, God, I'd really like to attend one of those, just drop us a line and we'll send you a link out to each or all of those previous programs. Coming up in 2020, just so you're aware, we're doing a 4-part program called Building the Resilience to Thrive in a Frantic World. A couple of weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal, they reported that the current generation coming to work in their early 20s are the most stressed and anxious generation that have ever come to the workplace ever. And they're joining a workplace that is the most stressed and anxious it has ever been. So the ability to build the resilience to be able to deal with the stressors in our modern world, which are not going to go away, is something that's really important. So watch out for that in Q1. You're already, if you signed up for this program, it means that we'll alert you to future ones. This is one I'm really invested in myself personally. We're going to be doing something on the buying brain. So it's the marriage between emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and the art of selling, if you like. And today, of course, we're looking at, do you know where you're going to? And this is a 4-part program that is really aimed to give us a chance to sort of reflect on what do we want to have the same and what do we want to have different in 2020. And I think everybody has, to a greater or lesser extent, some sense of renewed hope on New Year's Eve, when it's starting into a new year, and you can more or less put all of the things that didn't quite work out in 2019 behind you and start off a brand new year. And the idea of this program starting in October is to run up to just about, I think it's the 2nd week of December, and get you thinking just and marinating yourself in what do I want to do in 2020. So when that bell rings at midnight on New Year's Eve as we enter into 2020, did you really feel excited and buzzed and upbeat about it? And that's our sole objective for these next 4 sessions, which are 4 60-minute sessions. Now, before I jump into it, I want to talk about vision a little bit and talk about a personal vision. And I'm not talking about vision in the sense that organizations talk about it. This is very personal. And this is about a 90-second video that around Steve Jobs, who had latterly had a sort of speckled reputation, but it's an extract from one of his speeches, and I just want to riff off that a little bit as we move forward. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop the screen share for a moment just to share and make sure that I share the sound with you. Now, if you can't hear the sound, it really doesn't matter when it comes up, because I do have it subtitled underneath. But let's just take 90 seconds and start to get into the mindset of what are we talking about when we talk about vision. So here is an extract from a speech by Steve Jobs.
For the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever helped me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything. You thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes.
Yeah, and you know that depending on where your head is this morning, that could be a little bit grim and modeling, or it could be really inspirational, because I think, you know, having somebody speak from that place that he was speaking from, you know, about how, as he said, you are already naked, you have nothing to lose if you give it your very best. And I love the line that he says, if you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, that he asked himself, if I knew I was going to die tomorrow, would I want to do today, or would I want to do what I'm planning to do today? And I think if you get up in the morning, each morning, and you know that you want to do what you're planning to do today, or you know that you're on the path to something which has a bigger meaning for you, well then I think life becomes infinitely easier. I think for many people, life is just not easy, but it becomes infinitely easier when you feel you're on a road to something that's altogether better. So that's what we want to focus upon, is developing some kind of a vision for doing that. Now, just as I was preparing this program, I met a gentleman in the United States called Richard Boyatzis. And some of you may know Boyatzis already from many of the books that he's written. This is one that's just come out in the last couple of weeks. And I met him at the session for the Consortium for Research in Emotional Intelligence. And he was talking about this particular book and talking about the very deep research that he and his colleagues have done over the last 20 years into the application of neuroscience and behavioral research into helping people to change, helping people to coach themselves and coach other people to make meaningful changes in their lives. And it was really timely that the book came along, because one of the things that their research shows really, really strongly is that almost all, particularly personal, almost all personal change programs where people decide they're going to change their behaviors fail. And most of them fail because there is an absence of an overarching vision. And he talks in there a couple of times about a couple of candidates and examples of people who were being coached. One person who was particularly stuck, this gentleman whom we codenamed Greg, and he speaks in there about how the coach got him to start reflecting on the details of his personal vision so that he could pull himself away. And I thought this was really nice, from the shoulds and the oughts in his life. Because you and I, and most of us, we get out of bed in the morning, and most of what we're doing is what we're doing because we feel we should or we ought, because we feel compelled by whatever we've been doing up to now to continue to do that into the future. And he talks about the research that went in, you know, in the background that shows that looking at this vision has a dramatic impact upon the success of personal change. And, you know, goes on to say that Greg discovered he got that positive energy and motivation that comes from that clarity, from getting out of bed, to paraphrase Job's, knowing that if this was the last day of my life, that I'm doing that I want to do what I'm doing today. And so a book, by the way, well worth reading, particularly if you're a coach or a manager or anybody who's supporting people's change. In fact, if you're a parent, particularly supporting teenagers and older teenagers, it's a tremendously interesting book for supporting that process. He goes on to talk about defining the vision, and this is what I think is really important. This program today is about creating a vision that is not a set of goals. It's not a strategy, and it's not full of the oughts and the shoulds, the actions or the obligations. It is really a purpose, an overarching vision that is the North Star, if you like, for where you want to go in 2020. So he says it is a dream. Now, before you switch off, you look at this and you think, God, I didn't come on this program to dream. All of Boyatz's and other people's research show that when we have that really clear picture of what the ideal situation looks like, things become better. By the way, in session 3 of this program, I talk about resilience, and I talk about building the ability to stay on track even when things become tough. And it's really interesting to look in the area, and I touch on this a little bit earlier on or later on as well. In there, he talks about an fMRI study that showed that in people who had a very clear or were working on developing this very clear vision, that the parasympathetic nervous system, which is really the nervous system that is responsible for helping us deal with stress or switching off the fight or flight response, is triggered and activated more frequently. So translating that into English, having a clear vision reduces the level of stress in your life. And I suspect that's just simply because when you get up in the morning, you don't feel, I'm doing this because I should or because I ought, but more because I want to. This is who I want to be. Now, one of the challenges I find when I coach people and I work with people is, and you talk to them about visioning, is that they'll often say, yeah, but you know what, my life has progressed to a stage where I no longer have the option to change because I have commitments. I have a job commitment, I have a mortgage, I have a wife, I have young children, I have lots of shoulds and oughts in my life, and I can't change it. And what I would encourage you to do is just to, first off, to go with me on this, but secondly, just to look at the story of this gentleman. Now, let me just test out the chat with you here and ask you on the chat. Oh, hang on, let me get my chat up there. Oh, for some reason it's not coming up. Okay, if I can't get it up, I am not going to be able to do the switch. Here we go. I've got the chat. So just tell me, who do you think this is? Do you recognize his face? Tell me, who do you think he is? Pop it into the chat there. No idea. Thanks, Mira. Tesla. No, it's not Tesla. They around that. Looks like my Uncle Jeff. Probably not Sally. Sigmund Freud. That's a really good guess because it's the same era and he looks kind of similar. Deiric McCann in Kenya just said it's Alfred Nobel, and he's absolutely on the money. And looks like some psychologist. Is it Abraham Lincoln? And in around that time, those beards, they kind of make us all look the same. But it is actually Alfred Nobel. And Alfred Nobel was a really great engineer and designer and a creator of patents. But his most famous one had a dramatic impact upon the world because he made it possible to blow things up without blowing oneself up. When Nobel came onto the scene, if you wanted to, for example, create a big hole in the ground to create a mine, you could either dig it out or you could blow it out with nitroglycerin. Now, you've probably seen nitroglycerin on the movies. It's this highly unstable compound, and when people are carrying it, they tend to be really nervous because you drop it on the floor, boom, it's that unstable that it'll just blow you apart. And hundreds of people were killed by the instability of nitroglycerin. Nobel came along and he discovered that there was a particular mixture of clays that if he mixed them with nitroglycerin, completely stabilized nitroglycerin, and made it possible to handle it very, very easily, you know, just like I'm handling this pen, and then to detonate it simply by applying an electrical charge or applying a flame to it when one wanted to. And of course, that was dynamite. Now, he made a fortune out of that. At the time he died, he was worth the equivalent of about $200 million. Actually, I think it was 180 million US dollars. But he was worth a hell of a lot of money. In 1888, according to the Paris newspaper Le Quotidien, and excuse, with apologies to the French folks on there for my pronunciation before, and as I'm going to do now, they published a headline that said, Le marchand de la mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. And they went on to say that the man who has been responsible and who has dedicated his life to killing more people since the beginning of humankind died today. Now, in actual fact, he didn't die on that particular day. His brother Ludwig died in 1888, and the journalist got mixed up and published that obituary for Nobel. Now, we don't have any record of how Nobel reacted to that, or what he thought, or you know, when he was reading the paper. But I like to imagine him reading that paper and thinking, good Lord, this is my future. When I pass, this is the legacy that I'm leaving behind. And you can only imagine that at that stage that it must have had a dramatic impact upon him, because I don't think anybody wants to remember it as the merchant of death at the end of their lives. And you can only assume that it started to ferment in his mind and started to bug him a little bit, because in 1894, he rewrote his complete will, and he put 94% of his fortune, unbeknownst to his family, by the way, 94% of his fortune into a trust for the Nobel Peace Prize. And that was so successful, that fund has been successful, and has made his name so famous that most people, when they think of the Alfred Nobel who was responsible for creating dynamite, and they think of the Nobel who was responsible for creating the Nobel Peace Prize, they think of them as two different people, because how could the person who was responsible for creating dynamite and explosives be the same person who's responsible for the Peace Prize? So he decided on a dime in that moment, I am going to change completely the direction I'm going. Well, every single day, you and I get up out of bed in the morning, and we have the opportunity to do that if we choose to. And on the New Year's Eve, you'll have the opportunity to decide that you're going to do that. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to think, regardless of what commitment you have right now, regardless of the situation that you're in right now, dare to dream a little bit about what it would be like if you got more from life, more of what you wanted than what you're getting right now. And so this program is going to start that thought process, so that over the next couple of weeks you marinate in the process of getting a really clear vision of where you'd like to go. The first session just talks about the process of starting to create that vision. The second one will look at enhancing your focus and self-awareness, because once you have that vision, there are a couple of things we want to do, but the next one really is to start looking at, here's where I am right now, here's where that vision is, and just to start priming the mind to start noticing opportunities to close the gap between where I am right now and where I want to be. The third one recognizes the fact that when man plans, God laughs. And as soon as you put any sort of a vision or a plan in place, obstacles rise up seemingly to screw with you. So we're going to talk about how do you build the resilience to deal with the challenges in this world right now and to keep on track to your vision. And then, as you know from the program overview that you signed up to, in the last session, we're going to get together as a group and have a more open exchange on what we can do moving forward. So that's what we're about. Now, let me give you some science really, really quickly. If you want to, and if you have the fortitude, the strength, and the concentration to be able to read a deeply scientific paper, well, then the paper by this lady, Regina Pally, called The Predicting Brain, is a good read. It's an interesting read, but my God, it's tough. So I took out the two most important pieces that talk about how your brain works when you have created any sort of a vision. And you can read that as well as I can there. If you look at it, it says that even before something happens, the brain is always thinking ahead and is making predictions about what is likely to happen. And then it starts, because on the basis of what it believes or thinks as being led to believe is going to happen, it starts setting in place the behaviors, the emotions, the physiological responses, and the interpersonal ways of being that best fit with what is predicted. In other words, what she's saying is that whatever you think about, in time you become. And so our brain is continually looking at, what am I thinking about? What am I doing? Where am I going? And it's learning from all of that past thinking and behavior what's going to happen in the future. So what we need to do is change that internal dialogue and start to feed that predicting brain data that is going to orient it in the direction that we want to orient it. Now, this is where you're going to need your pen and paper, because this is really, for this particular session, this is the core exercise of this session. We're going to do a very quick 3-minute journaling exercise that I'm going to encourage you to repeat a couple of times before the next session. So when I talk about journaling, there are lots of different sorts of journaling, and many of you perhaps already journal. In fact, just while I'm talking here, why don't I just put up the attendee list? How many people already write a daily journal or a diary or whatever? Just put your hand up in the there should be a hands up function in front of you. Yeah, so many of you, in fact, quite a number of you already write a daily journal or a daily diary. And this approach to journaling is just slightly different, okay? In that what we're going to do when we start this exercise, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do it in a few moments, is I'm going to give you a prompt. And I'm going to ask you to write down the prompt. So I'll give that to you in a moment. So the first thing you'll do is you'll write down the prompt. And then the second thing is, when I say go, you'll start writing from where the prompt ended, keeping the pen on the paper and keeping writing until the end of the 3-minute session that I put in there. And I don't want you to think about, what am I writing? I don't want you to think about the structure, punctuation, grammar. This is not about having a beautifully written vision that you're going to share with the world or publish on your blog. This is about tuning into your thought process without getting in your own way. So when I give you the prompt, which is just in a moment, you put the pen, you write down the prompt. After you've written down the prompt, when we start, you start writing from the end of the prompt. You keep the pen on the paper and you keep writing until we get to the end, not thinking about what's coming next, not thinking about structure, punctuation, or grammar, etc. And if you run dry, if in the middle of it, you suddenly, I have nothing more to write, rewrite the prompt, or you can write, I can't think of anything else to write, repeatedly until your thoughts start flowing again. And the process, the most important part of this process is just keeping the pen moving. Don't get into thinking about, maybe these would be the steps I go through, or this is what I'd like to achieve, or this sounds more coherent. This is a stream of consciousness exercise. So please grab your pen and paper, okay? And here's the prompt. It is October 22nd, 2024. Okay, so just write down that prompt. I'll tell you what it's all about now in a moment, but just write down the prompt. It is October 22nd, 2024. So while you're writing that, it's October 22nd, 2024. What I want you to think and what I want you to write about is, if your life went precisely where you'd like it to go, if it exceeded even your most optimistic expectations, what would it be like in 5 years' time? Now, I say again, dare to dream. This is not about, well, if I could clear the mortgage, I could do that. And supposing I could do this, I could do that. It's about letting your imagination go forward to a point in 5 years' time where things have gone really well, okay? And what I'd suggest is that, as much as possible, that you use language that puts you in the present tense of October 24th or October 24. Yeah, it is 24, 2024. And put it so language like it is and I am. so that you get that sense of being 5 years ahead. And it's really, where will I be? I am in the south of France. I am doing this, etc. What are you doing? Who am I with? What is the focus of your life? So the purpose of this is just in 3 minutes to demonstrate the technique. Okay, you're not going to be done in 3 minutes, not even close to it, but just to demonstrate this technique and get you some experience with it. So let me go on to the chat for a moment, just in the moment, and ask, is there anybody any questions? Okay, anybody any questions? Just pop it onto chat if you have any questions, just about the process there. Okay, thanks, Velasios. All good, thanks. Okay, good, I've been clear. At this time in the morning, I can never be entirely sure. So thank you, and thank you for that little bit of feedback. Okay, so when I click the slide next time, it's going to go over and it's going to start a 3-minute countdown. And I'm going to go quiet during that period. Get your pen ready. So here we go. It is October 22nd, 2024. Resist the temptation to think about it, to stop, to consider, just keep the pen moving. Okay, so that was 3 minutes, and in a few moments, you know, at the end, I'll ask you just to put down a couple of words into the chat on your experience of that. But just in the interest of keeping things moving along, keeping us on track, time-wise, first wanted to say to you that the purpose of this, as I said before, is to give you that kind of North Star, that general direction, that thing that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. But I thought you'd be interested to know in some of the about some of the really deep research that's going on journaling in the medical profession and elsewhere. And there really is a huge amount of really great research going on in journaling right now. This is just a selection of 3 or 4 pieces that I pulled off the web. There's a bigger slide that I pulled from a larger study. But what I want you to just notice in this, as I said, in session 3, we're going to be talking about resilience and stress resistance and staying positive and upbeat and getting up in the morning and feeling good about things. And what you must notice running through this is that there is a really strong and extremely robust body of evidence that says just journaling, just putting together your thoughts, getting a clarity on who you are, where you want to go to, is enormously helpful already in creating a much more resilient way of showing up, boosting the mood, enhancing the self, the sense of well-being, etc. Now, I purposely cut out the second slide I had on research, but let me tell you really briefly that there's also a lot of research to show that journaling had a direct impact upon the immune systems of people suffering with autoimmune diseases and even with things like AIDS, that it increased the number. There was a direct effect in increasing the number of T cells or antibodies that were available to fight the disease. So journaling has a deeper impact upon us than we yet quite understand. So really worth thinking. 1, it gives you that clarity that we're talking about, that reason to get out of bed. But 2, the process itself is being shown to be a very, very great way of enhancing your well-being, your resilience, and your ability to deal with stress. So just a little 2 for the price of 1. Now, what I think about this program as is kind of been a little bit like your GPS, in the sense that, you know, you get into your car and your GPS is on there, and if you have it switched on, I purposely use the old-fashioned type here that's built into the dash of the car, and if you have it switched on, as you're driving along, you can drive anywhere you like, and if you don't tell it where you want to go, it'll keep recording where you're going and where you turn up to, and you can just get into that car and drive wherever you happen to be pointed, and the GPS will just passively follow along and tell you you're passing through this place and you're passing through that place, and there seems to be no particular plan. Or you can sit down with the GPS and you can say to it, hey, here's where I'd actually like to go. Here's where I'd ultimately like to arrive. And the process of doing that starts the GPS doing its thing. And so, you know, if we use that analogy, I think of this vision. Once it's developed, once you've refined it a little bit more than that 3 minutes, and I'll talk about how you do that in a few moments, but once you've refined it a little bit more as being the instruction, the where I want to go that you put into the GPS. But if you put in a destination into your GPS and you don't pay attention to the guidance that it's giving you, well, then you're probably not going to arrive, and you might as well not have the GPS. So you can have that overarching vision, but while knowing broadly where I want to arrive and putting that into GPS and setting that as, here is my vision, while that is better than not having idea where you want to go, if you don't back it up by watching for opportunities for the appropriate turns and the appropriate roads to be taking, well, then it's a less effective exercise. And paying attention to the turns you need to take and the changes in direction you need to make, I like to liken that to on a daily basis, tuning your intention for the day into the overall vision that you have for yourself. Now, I just need to move my video out of the way for the people who are watching the recording. So I want to talk briefly about the idea of intentions. And I think what's really important for connecting this vision from for the overall direction that you want to go over the next 5 or 10 or 15 years back into what you're doing day to day when you get out of bed, to give you that sense of excitement that what you're doing is what you want to do, as Steve Jobs said. That's a process of having a daily intention, an intention for the day. And this lady, Marla Tabika, she says, setting and living your intentions allows you to focus on who you are in the moment. Steve Jobs said, every morning I get out of bed and I ask myself, if I knew this was the last day of my life, would I want to do what I have to do today? And this allows you in the moment, as you said, an intention to say, is this what I want to do? Is this still the right vision? Is this still the direction I want to be moving in? And that renewed clarity, that revisiting of the vision, if you like, on a daily basis, as she says, raises the emotional energy, which in turn raises the physical energy. Now, an intention for today is not a goal. It's not my to-do list. Here's all the things I want to do. It's something that talks about how you want to be and show up and generally show up during that day that's going to contribute forward to the vision. So it might be something like, today I'll be open and alert to any opportunities to further my vision for the future. Or my intention today is to show up as my best self in every situation. We'll talk about that best self shortly in another session. As I go about today, I'm going to be mindful of all I have to be grateful for. And you get the patterning that's in this. So it's as I go about today, I'm going to keep my mind open, watchful for any opportunities that are to help me move in the direction of my vision. So my encouragement to you as we work through this session today would be, if you want to make this work, if you want to start getting that sense of excitement when you get out of bed in the morning, that I'm actually on track to a larger vision of who I can be and what I want to be, well then I would say, just now as we're talking, set an intention just for what you're going to do between now and the next time we meet on October 30th. Just one, as a bit of practice, and two, as a demonstration to yourself of the power of intention. Now, setting an intention is just as simple as saying, I intend to do the following. I will, before October 30th, do X, Y, Z. Let me suggest the X, Y, Z. Each day over the next period, as we move towards session 2, I suggest just a very, very simple intent that says, today I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. Because the first thing we need to do is clarify what is that personal vision. And between now and the next time, I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can do that. But what I'm suggesting is, when you climb out of bed in the morning, and as you're getting ready to start your day, that you just pause just momentarily and you say, today I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. Now, one of the challenges I've found is that people might have that intention, but they can forget. They already have this routine. They have this habitual way of going about their mornings. And so remembering just even to take that split second, a couple of seconds to stop and express that intention oneself can be challenging. And that's why we created an approach to this in our programs, where we created these coins. No, you're not going to see that. You can see them on the screen anyway. But this is a very simple mechanism and something that you can use. Don't worry, I'm not going to try and sell you a coin. I'll give you an alternative to it. But let me tell you what this is about. What we've done, what we do at the end of a lot of our programs now, is we give people this simple coin. On one side, it says, what are your intentions for today? And on the other side, it says, what are you grateful for today? Now, most men that I know, and the ladies are slightly different because of the clothing, but most men that I know wear pants or trousers. And most of them, when they get up in the morning, they go to their bedstand or wherever they left their keys and the other stuff that they carry in their pockets, and they take it off there and they put it into their pockets. And what I teach them to do is put that coin in the pocket. And as you're getting up in the morning, just as you touch the coin, on one side it says, what are your intentions for today? Just use the coin as a physical cue to stop and say, how do I intend to show up today? What are my intentions for today? Or in this case, today I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. And the way we train with this very simple mechanism is, at the end of the day, when you're unpacking the pocket and you're getting ready for bed and you're getting for rest and you're putting stuff out in the bedstand, again, you got the physical cue as you pick this unusual coin out of your pocket to say, okay, what am I grateful for today? And we're going to talk about gratitude later on in the program, but what am I grateful for today? And that simple physical cue allows you to remember that intention. And remembering that intention connects today to the bigger vision, and connecting to the bigger vision gives you, one, that sort of sense that GPS has me on track. 2, that today is intentional. It's part of a larger plan. And 3, all of the other benefits that I mentioned so far about having that clarity that gives you greater peace of mind, greater well-being, and so on and so forth, and a clearer direction. Now, it's not practical, and I looked at it. It's not practical for me to say to you, listen, we'll sell you one of those, or even we'll give you one of those, which I would have been happy to do in return for the post and packing. So it's just not practical. It'd just be hassle-some. So here's what I suggest. Before we had these, what I used to tell people was go and find a foreign coin, or go and find another object that can be a proxy for the coin that you carry in your pocket from now on. Don't make it a €2 coin if you live in Euroland. Don't make it a dollar if you live, or a silver dollar if you live in the United States, because it's going to too easily get mixed in with the regular money and won't trigger you the same way. So what I'm suggesting is find a foreign coin or some other object that's meaningful to you that you start using in that way. It's just a physical cue. If you've read the book by Charles Duhigg on establishing habits, you'll know about the cue, reward, routine cycle. That physical cue is enough to remind you of the intention you have for that day, which is enough to tune you into that vision. And you don't have to be thinking of it every hour of every day. You just have to revisit it every so often and trust that, as Regina Palley said, that predicting brain is taking those instructions and moving in the right direction. So as we sit here, here's what I'm asking you to do. You set whatever intention you like, but what I would think is really useful is if you were back here on October 30th and you had real clarity on that vision and you really had it together, and I'm going to give you some steps to get that clarity, wouldn't it be really, really a victory for you? So maybe the intention to set right in this moment is, and you just need to say to yourself, today I intend to move towards greater clarity on my personal vision. Now, to make this process a little bit more interesting, we also, as you saw in the invitation, we created a journaling app. And I have a nice lady here. This is about a 90-second video, I think. A nice lady here who talks about the app. I'm going to tell you where to go and get that shortly if you haven't already gone and sniffed around, as some people have, and found it. But let me first tell you what it does, and we let this nice lady tell you what it does, and then tell you how to use it between this and next week. And over the next few weeks, I'll give you other suggestions on how to use it. So here's our nice lady talking about the Genos journaling app.
The Genos journaling app, day by day to who you want to be in the world. You've probably read some of the ever-increasing body of research extol virtues of journaling as a tool for self-reflection and exploration. Using the Genos journaling app, you can harness this power to greatly enhance your self-awareness, deepen your sense of gratitude, and utterly clarify your personal vision. It couldn't be easier or more effective. When you open the app, you're prompted to choose between journaling on personal vision, self-awareness, or gratitude. Simply click on your preference, and then decide how long you'd like to journal for today. Use the no time limit option if you simply want to write until you've no more to write. With those decisions made, you're now presented with one of more than 150 prompts specially designed to help you dive deeply on your chosen topic. If you don't like the topic presented, you can change it simply by clicking on the Change Prompt button, and a new prompt is presented. Once you have a prompt you're happy with, simply click I'm ready to begin. You'll then be reminded of the basic rules of this type of journaling. Before going further, simply write the prompt down in your journal. When you click on Let's Go, your prompt is displayed and the countdown begins. As soon as the countdown begins, put your pen to paper and start writing from where the prompt leaves off, and don't stop until the bell rings to tell you time's up. If you run out of something to write, then simply write I've nothing to write or something like that until things start flowing again. The key is to keep the pen on the paper and keep it moving, ignoring the temptation to think too much, read back, punctuate, or correct. At any stage, you can pause the countdown by pressing the pause button, and start it again by clicking on Resume. When your time is up, a bell will ring. If you want to go again, simply click Go Again button. When you're finished, quickly read back what you've written and then put your journal away. Next time you journal, simply repeat the process, reviewing more of your previous sessions as your thoughts become clearer and clearer with every journaling session. Couldn't be easier. Get started now.
And to get started, you can go into the Apple App Store if you're an Apple user and search for, don't do it now, I've only got 2 minutes left, but search for Genos. Or go into the Google Play Store and search for Genos, and you'll find the app in there, Genos Journaling app. There are 1 or 2 other apps that we use internally with our partners for our community. Make sure you're getting the one that says Genos Journaling app. So so download that before next week, okay? And what I suggest before we go to, before you come along next time, one is journal without the app a few times every second day. In fact, I'm recommending that you journal every second day on that original prompt. It is October, and it should have been 23rd, of course, not 22nd. October 23rd, 2024, and journal on that for 3 or 4 minutes. And what I suggest each time you do that is when you finish, say, for example, session 2, go back to session 1, read it through, then read through session 2, then put it away. Then when you come back for the third one, go through your session on session 3, then read 1, 2, and 3, put it away, and so on and so forth. And what you'll find over time is it starts to refine. Now, to make that work for you, I suggest you get a journal or some special notebook or something where you're going to keep everything together. We've started with a scrap of paper today, but you really want to try and keep that stuff in the same place altogether. And we're going to talk in future sessions about how you can use that simple journaling approach for solving longer term challenges that you have, getting ideas for driving the innovation process, getting new business ideas, solving business challenges, and so on and so forth. But before the next time, just journal 3 or 4 times on the prompt. I'm going to send you a copy of these slides. I'm also going to send you a recording of this session so that you'll have that prompt ready to go. So download the journaling app and try some of the personal vision prompts. Of course, go in and try the others if you want to. But what can be useful is there's something like 50 different personal vision aspects in there in prompts. So please work with the core one, but if you want to, supplement by just writing on some of the other prompts that are in the app. And then finally, just use some kind of mechanism, anything at all that's going to remind you just to set an intention. Now, if you don't like the idea of having something in your pocket or a token or a coin or something, you could also set a reminder on your calendar to pop up and set an intention. The only problem with reminders on calendars is when they're for something like that happens every day, we tend to habituate to them and they come up and we just click go and they have no impact. There's something about the tactile quality of something in your pocket that tends to trigger things a little bit more effectively. Let me ask you just on the chat, because I'm going to ask you about questions now in a moment. Anybody know what this stuff is? Yeah, tofu, exactly. It is tofu. And just curiosity, what does tofu taste like? No bad language, please, from those you don't. Nothing. That's exactly right. And sorry, who was it? Misa said there, tastes like nothing. Exactly. Basically, tofu tastes like whatever you happen to marinate it in. So what we're doing now is we're taking that, if you like, the tofu of your brain, if you'll excuse the corniness, and what we're doing over the next 10 days is marinating it in that vision, marinating it in what is the flavor I want in my life, and we're priming that predicting brain that Regina Pally talks about. We're starting to set the direction of that GPS and starting to get that clarity that will in turn feed into daily intentions. So Brenda said, yeah, the thing you mix it with is the flavor you get, and Nicole said whatever it's cooked in. So it doesn't really have a flavor per se. So let me see, I'm just going to, if you've got any questions, please pop them in there. I'm just going to go in and see. We got Slovenia, we got Dublin. Let me see, any other. I'm not sure. Somebody asked a question there and I wasn't sure. Julie, you said, I write a multitude of lists. Does that count? I wasn't sure exactly what you meant by that. Sally says, I bet you could pimp a coin with intent on one side and grateful on the other. Tipex and a Sharpie. I love it. Pimp a coin, Sally, really? Yeah, but you could absolutely, or you could do anything you like. Is the app available on Android phones? Yes, you know, there's it's on the Google Play Store for Android phones. Now, somebody came up there a moment ago, and thank you. On the Apple App Store, it is called the Genos journaling app. Okay, on the Play Store, it's just under Genos, and that's something I have to change. I don't know what went wrong. I only saw that this morning. Bet you could pimp a coin. Ditto to Mukesh, Samsung, anything that uses Android. So it's available for Android, and it's available for the iPhone platform. Let me see. Any other questions? What does? By the way, somebody said. I said, what does it taste like? And Marie said, what does tofu taste like? Yeah. Or Dennis said, yeah. Yeah, you're obviously big fans. My phone finds it as mindful journaling. Great. Whatever you find, the worst case, if you look for Genos, you will definitely find it. It comes up third on the Play Store. Believe it or not, I think it comes up under Genos. I think you got the first one that comes up when you put in Genos. I think is Genos Pizzas somewhere in the world. And then you've got us further down because we're there. Sally says, it's the facilitator in me. Sharpies are the solution to everything. Julie Vela, humor on whether I journal. I'm not sure. Humor. I do list humor. Oh, humor on whether I journal. Okay. Sorry. I understand now, Julie. So yeah, I make those little humorous quips all the time. Nobody gets them either. Thanks, Derek, said Saeed. Thought-provoking session. You know what? Very, very simple idea. We have actually finished with 5 minutes to spare. So I'm going to close down. Unless you have any other questions, I'll hang on here for about 30 seconds or thereabouts. Remember, we will, because we'll be following up with you by email, you'll also obviously have the opportunity to come back there. Answer to my lists writing you asked about. Yes, I got that, Julie. Sorry about that. Chantel, my phone finds it as mindful journaling. Thanks, Chantel. Thanks, Derek. See you tomorrow. Oh, Dennis. Yeah. Dennis is on our certification. Okay, folks, thank you very, very much. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. See you very soon on the 30th. And please don't be a spectator to this. If any of the content spoke to you, well, do a little bit of the work before next time. And I promise you, you're going to find the impact upon you really interesting. You all have as they say in the United States, you all have a nice day. Take care. Bye-bye.